How you doing, guys? Big Mac Dan School here again today, back once again with another Conquest video for you. Today I'll be taking a look through the pages of issue 70. Before we get started, I want to say one last thank you to Ryan O'Brien for sending me issue 70, this copy of issue 70. He just sent me the magazine and he sent it free of charge. I don't need the paint, so that doesn't bother me at all. I did ask the shop to reorder me my regular copy as well. But if that doesn't turn up now, it doesn't really matter because, like I said, thanks to Ryan, I've got this copy of issue 70 to review for you. Now, it's slightly out of sync because when the video goes live, it's like 4 days after my issue 71 video. But it's no big deal because when it goes into the playlist and people in other territories around the world where Conquest is soon to be available or already available, it's just launched in Germany, congratulations there. Yeah, so in other territories where it's going to be available, people will be able to watch it in the right order. So ignore this bit at the start if you're in a foreign land and you're wondering why I'm talking about it being out of sync when in the playlist it's completely in sync. Magical. Okay, on with issue 70. We've got 2 pots of paint, like I said. In the UK they are £2.75 and that is £5.50 for 2 pots of paint. The magazine itself is £7.99, so we lose a bit of money on this issue rather than just buying the product from Games Workshop. But what's inside? Is it worth that extra little bit of money that we've lost? Let's find out, shall we? Hierarchy of the Imperium and using Battleforged armies also within. Turning to the first page, we get Holy Terra. Gives us a nice image here, a picked capture of Holy Terra. And then around the outside of it, it gives us a few smaller images and explains a few key parts of Holy Terra, from the Imperial Palace, the Scholastica Sycana, Orbital Defence System, Ecclesiarchal Palace, Hall of Judgment, Administratum Archive, Cathedral of the Emperor Defied, and Hall of the Astronomicon, some key parts of the infrastructure of Terra itself and the wider Imperium. Moving on to the next page, it describes life on Terra. Despite its status as the seat of the Imperium's power, Terra is not immune from the problems that afflict the galaxy. The High Lords and their noble kin are fortunate enough to live in comfortable quarters atop the towering network of hives that cover the city. Miles below, in the grime and dust of the lower hives, most humans live short lives filled with pain and misery. Agents of the Adeptus Arbites and the Inquisition are everywhere, ready to pounce on the slightest hint of disloyalty. So just as around the various planets in the Imperium, it's the same on Terra. They crush disloyalty under their iron boot. So any hint of someone speaking out against the Emperor, against the Administratum, or anyone, then it's bye-bye for you. You get some lead boots and chucked in the ocean. Oh no, there's no oceans on Terra because they've all burned off because it's a toxic wasteland. It's all desert now, Terra. There's no oceans and water. I'm not sure how water's produced, but that'd be an interesting thing to look at. Maybe you can find some information in that on Lexicon's website or on a 40k wiki website. And then it talks about the Emperor's abode. It was once a glorious utopian palace that ranged all across the Himalayas, basically. But now it's more like, during the Horus Heresy, it was fortified by Rogel Dawn of the Imperial Fist because the Emperor wanted him to do that in order to defend Terra and defend the Imperium for the inevitable attack of the traitor Horus and his 8 brothers that turned traitor with him. But yeah, now it's more like, it's a bit more done up again, a bit more fancy, but it's all grim and gothic and dirty because of the pollution. So it's not looking like it once did. Hierarchy of the Imperium, we've got the Adeptus Astra Telepathica. They identify, classify, recruit psychers by force most of the time. Then we've got the Navis Nobilite. These are they hold quite a big sway, the Navis Nobilite in the Imperium, because they are one of the few respected, shall we say, mutants in the Imperium. They have a mutation which gives them a third eye in the forehead, and if you look into it, you go mad because it's like looking into the warp itself. So yeah, they have a third eye, and that enables them to see in warp light. So they can see the clearest path through the warp. They can see the Astronomicon on the other side of the warp, so they know where they are in relation to the Astronomicon, and they enable you to navigate warp ships throughout the galaxy. And they can withdraw that support for a particular faction within the Imperium if they wanted to, and that's why they hold sway in the Imperium. And then we've got the Adeptus Astronomicon, rather. It trains Psychers to provide raw psychic power required to fuel the Astronomicon. There's 10,000 Psychers powering the Astronomicon on a daily basis, and they burn out brightly. They burn brightly and quickly. So they're like candles, basically. If you think of the 10,000 candles, think of how that would look across a field from you. That's how the Psychers look in the warp to the navigators on ships, and that's why there's constantly Psychers being sacrificed for the Emperor and to burn in the light of the Astronomicon, basically. It's not literally burn, it's a psychic burn. Rogue traders. Rogue traders are independent operators that go out to the far-flung reaches of the galaxy that are as yet unexplored. They're respected, but they behave like privateers in the 16th century. I think 16th century, like if you don't know your English and British history, then if you look at someone like Francis Drake, Walter Raleigh, they were sent out to basically go and treasure hunt and raid Spanish ships and stuff like that, in order to make the English crown, the British crown, richer. It was English crown at the time, wasn't it? Because there was no, the Scotland was still separate, but then eventually joined it around that point, I think. I may be wrong there, though. Correct me if I'm wrong in the comments below, to any historical buffs watching. Planetary governors. Most planets have a governor, and some live on-world, some live off-world. They are allowed to rule the planet as they see fit, basically, as long as it's in line with, as long as it doesn't step out of any of the major rules of the Imperium. So there's no wish for chaos, there's no, crush any, same as on Terra, crush any naysayers. I can't think of the right word. Anyone speaking out against the Emperor, crush them with your iron boot and rule it in the same way. But as long as you provide your tithes, your taxes, so a tithe in terms of bodies, men and women, and that are sent to serve in the Imperial Guard, any tithes you might have to any Space Marine legions, if you're a recruiting planet, something like that, then you're expected to keep that tithe going. And if you fall short, then you'll come under the scrutiny of the Inquisition. Then there's the Adeptus Arbites. They're the police force of, but they're more than a police force, really. They're more like the judges in Judge Dredd, like judge, jury, and executioner. So if they find you guilty of something, they'll pronounce you guilty of something and they'll shoot you in the street, rather than going through the rigmarole of catching you, keeping you prisoner, like a modern day court system or legal system, capturing you, keeping you prisoner, and sending you through the courts to be judged by a jury of your fellow men. It's not really like that in the 41st millennium. They're more like judge, jury, and executioner on a typical basis. There will be instances when they capture someone and arrest them, and it goes to a higher power, but more often than not, they are more likely to just judge you for themselves. And then there's the Officio Assassinorum. They hold a lot of sway as well, because, as it implies, the Officio Assassinorum, they're assassins, basically, a league of assassins that, if they want to take out a particular rival, they will try and do so. It's very shady operations in the Imperium. Space Marine Assault Squads on the next page. It talks about assault squads and how they can break break strong lines through sheer force of will and the wielding of chainswords and power swords. They can, basically they've got massive jump packs. Flicking onto the next page, it's a Mars pattern jump pack. It's got twin jet turbines, reinforced jet turbine air intakes, supplementary power systems, quick release mechanism, so they can just press a button and then the seatbelt sort of straps, the harness comes off. And the Sons of Sanguinius, the Blood Angels, and the various successor chapters like the Flesh Tearers, Blood Drinkers, Lamenters, and so on and so forth, they specialise in assault squads. It's not just them, there's a few others that specialise in assault squads, but we'll concentrate on them. Whilst the mutation that created Sanguinius' wings has not been repeated amongst his sons, all Blood Angels have a natural talent for aerial combat. Most Blood Angels become assault marines as soon as their training as a scout is completed. Whilst they do not field more assault squads than other companies, or than other chapters rather, they have many more warriors trained to fulfill this role, and so their assault squads are almost always full strength. Blood Angel commanders field these warriors at the spearhead of their deadly assaults. Really had trouble reading that. I don't know what's going on with me. I think it's because it's morning and my brain's still in sleep mode. Anyway, on to the next page. Centurion assault squads. These are so the assault squads are about fast attack. Centurion assault squads aren't about fast attack. They're about breaking down heavily emplacements, heavily bedded in enemies. So if someone's hiding in a bunker or something like that, you'd send these Centurion assault squads in to break sieges. Basically, they've got these massive siege drills which can chew through ceramite and concrete and whatever material, plasteel, whatever material the opponent is using to defend themselves. They have siege drills, flamers, melter guns, hurricane bolters, and Centurion assault launchers. Flicking on to the next page, the Annals of the Space Wolves. This is confusing at times, because it talks about the Wrath of Magnus first of all, which is when the I think 9 what are they called, Silver Towers of Zeech appear in the Fenris system, and the Space Wolves and the Dark Angels defend Fenris and the Fenris system from Magnus's invasion. Then it goes on to the fall of Cadia, which we know a little bit about already, and the role the Space Wolves played in that. Jaws of the Warp, Rune Piece of Fenris, hear a bestial howl in the Imperium as warp storms tear through the Imperium. So it's the opening of the Great Rift, that really. And then it goes on to the avenging of Beric Thunderfist. Ragnar Blackmane slays his lord's killer, Gorok's Bloodfist, in single combat. After hunting down the Chaos Champion's word-bearer allies, Ragnar is elected the fallen Wolf Lord's successor. So to me, Ragnar Blackmane, I thought he was a Wolf Lord already. But I don't know the history of the Space Wolves in and out like some people do. So is this like a retcon from GW? Is it like out of sync? Or is it the vagaries of the warp that are making it out of sync? If you know more, let me know in the comments below. Basically what I'm getting at is, was Ragnar Blackmane already a Wolf Lord prior to, say, the fall of Cadia, or was he not? I always got the impression he was, but I could be wrong there. Maybe Mythos from Frost and Fist can correct me and set me straight in the comments below. Or any other Space Wolf players out there. And then there's a Gift of the Primarch, where Guilliman delivers the Primaris Space Marines, and then it goes on, and over the various course of the next few sections it talks about how, the Space Wolves, the Primaris Space Marines that have been delivered to the Space Wolves using Russ's gene seed, the Space Wolves don't trust them because they're not born of Fenris, they've not been through the trials of Morkai, and then they do some Primaris trials of Morkai basically. Not all of them return though, some of them run off into the wild. The Trials of Morkai, basically you're left thousands of miles from the Fang. You dropped thousands of miles from the Fang naked and alone. There's a TV show called Naked and Alone now, isn't there? I've not seen it. But you dropped thousands of miles from the Fang naked and alone, and you've got to make your way back, and stuff like that. And then on to Night of the Hellblasters. It talks about a particular action where the Hellblasters played a pivotal role against the Iron Warriors. And the Great Portent, it talks about the coming of the Wolf Time, and how Russ will return one day. It's an interesting little bit of text there. On to How to Paint White Scar. Not White Scars, but White Scar. It talks about where you might use your highlights, where you might use White Scar to highlight on certain models that we've already started painting. The Apothecary, Terminator Captain, Poxwalkers, and then it's Rakarth Flesh on cloth, on horns and bone, and then Cadian Flesh Tone, blending layers and fleshy mutations. And then there's a really nice, I'll pop a picture up behind me here, really nicely painted face behind us there. So we've got a lot of paints now that can lend us, with the right application of paint and skill, which we have probably developed some skill now over the course of the magazine. There's 70 issues we've had so far, up to this one, 71 in front of me there. But yeah, we should have developed some skill now along the way, so we might be able to get something close to that face there that that is shown on that page. And then it's on to Battle Forged Armies. It talks about restrictions, command points, command benefits, and factions. So the factions we've got throughout the course of this magazine, they've got faction keywords. The Death Guard have the Death Guard faction keyword, and the Ultramarines have the Ultramarine faction keywords. They will have different faction keywords like Imperium and like Nurgle and Chaos, or Heretic Astartes perhaps. They'll have various faction keywords. But to build a Battle Forged army, what you need to do is have the same faction keyword across all of your units. So the one that they choose to build the Battle Forged armies with these magazines, with the miniatures we've had in these magazines, are Ultramarines, and I think it's Ultramarines, yeah, Ultramarines and Death Guard. I myself am building an Imperial Fist army with the miniatures we've had in this magazine, so for me it won't be Ultramarines, it'll be Imperial Fists instead. So it talks about restrictions. Most detachments have certain restrictions, limit the number of unit types and things like that. We'll explore that in the next page. And then there's command points. Some, up to now, you have been given 3 command points each in every mission. From now on, you can only begin the game with these 3 command points if you choose a Battle Forged army. And then command benefits. This section lists any bonuses that you could apply if you include this detachment in your army. Usually it'll increase the number of command points, but there are some other command benefits with various detachments. Talk about creating detachments in the battlefield role, and how the battlefield role appears in the... There's a little symbol, it appears in the top left of each unit's data sheet. And the various battlefield roles are HQ, Troops, Elites, Fast Attack, Heavy Support, Dedicated Transport, Flyer, Fortification and Lord of War. And then it shows us a patrol detachment, and using a patrol detachment. A patrol detachment requires, it's marked out in red, requires 1 HQ, but you can have up to 2 HQs. Troops, it requires 1 troop. You can have up to 3 troops, and then the rest of them, it's all 0 to a certain number. So for elites it's 0 to 2, fast attack 0 to 2, heavy support 0 to 2, flyers 0 to 2. And then dedicated transports, you can have 1 dedicated transport for each other unit in that patrol detachment. On to the Battle of Arras. So this is a pitched battle where since the Battle of Brachius, the majority of the conflict on Corvon 2 has been restricted to small but deadly skirmishes. And this is a more thought out, more embedded battle. One of the forces has embedded themselves, it's the Death Guard, and the other force, the Ultramarines, needs to try and break those lines. Turn the page and we get 2 ready-made Battle Forged armies using patrol detachments here. It gives you a name for each army, it gives you a warlord, and these sheets are what we'll build our Battle Forged armies on in the future, or these kinds of sheets anyway. And it lists the total power level as well, so we can keep track of the power level. It lists it after the unit, the last little bit of the unit there. And then we add them all together and we try and balance each side to have around about the same amount of power level. Turning the page, all out war. The Ultramarines attack will have to smash through some carefully prepared Death Guard defences in order to be successful. The Death Guard have prepared 2 lines of defence, each thick with Poxwalkers, Plague Marines and all manner of other deadly warriors. Roll off at the start, the winner takes turn place in the battle maps as shown above, set up the terrain in agreed manner. The Death Guard deployment zones should have lots of terrain features because they're the ones embedded, so they'd have picked the best position for themselves to defend. The rest of the battlefield should be well prepared killing field with less terrain, so the Ultramarines have got to come through an open field and try and get across it without dying. And then the armies, both players use the pre-created detachments printed in this mission. So I'll flick back to that and just read through the units that are going to be taken. Primaris Captain, number of models 1. Primaris Lieutenant, 1 of them. Primaris Intercessor, 5 models. Redemptor Dreadnought, 1 model. Aggressor Squad, 3 models. Hellblasters, 5 models. And then the Death Guard are taken, that's 40 points altogether, 40 power level rather altogether. Death Guard are taken a Lord of Contagion, 1 model. Plague Marines, 5 models. Chaos Cultists, 10 models. Poxwalkers, 20 models. Mephitic Blight Hauler, 1 model. Fetid Bloat Drone, 1 model. And a Chaos Rhino, 1 model. That is 39 power level altogether. So your power level doesn't always have to be exactly equal, it can just be close, and then it gives you a roughly balanced battle. Deployment. The Death Guard player deploys first. They can deploy no more than 3 units in each of their deployment zones. There's 2 deployment zones, that's a total of 6 units. Including units placed inside transports. So, how many models have we got here? We've got, how many units rather? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units. So that means one of the units can't deploy. I assume that means you've got to use your teleport to strike ability with the Lord of Contagion or something like that, so that you get all your models on the battlefield. However, it's just a little bit of a grey area there. Are we expected to know we should be using that now or not? I would have thought so, but I'm not entirely sure. The Space Marines move onto the board at the start of their movement phase. They enter from the opposite board edge to the Death Guard deployment zones. The Space Marine player has the first turn. Victory conditions: the Space Marine player gains 1 victory point for every unit that ends the game in the enemy's first deployment zone, 2 victory points for every unit that ends the game in the enemy's second deployment zone. The Death Guard gain 1 victory point for every enemy unit eliminated. The game lasts 5 battle rounds. On to the final page now. What do we get in next week's Conquest, which I've already got? We get, a Sector Mechanicus Crane. I've done it again. If you watch the next video, so if you watch the review for issue 71, you'll see that I do that at some points in that video as well. So we get Sector Mechanicus Terrain in next week's issue, and then the following week in issue 72, we get Curse of Chaos Spawn. We get 2 Chaos Spawn, so it's more Death Guard miniatures there. There's one more to come after that. And yeah, we're coming to the end now, so it's going to be very exciting when we get our hands on that repulsor tank near the final run of Conquest magazine. Let me know what you think of my video. I'll look through the magazine in the comments below. Are you excited for any particular final models coming? Let me know. Right, I'll leave it there for now, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks to Ryan O'Brien again, and I will see you on the battlefield.